all the students who ever repeated a class for getting a D plus and below, all of them got a D plus and below eventually in their Form 4 KCSE exams. Hi everyone. About 7 months ago, I watched one of the most painful videos that I have ever watched in my life. It was the story of a boy who was repeated primary 1 for, listen to this, 15 years in the same class. I'm not even sure whether to call him a boy because he is now 21 years old. As a matter of fact, one of his former primary 1 classmates is now his teacher, having gone all the way up to college, while the young man stuck in the same grade for 15 years. Now, if this is not injustice, then we need to redefine injustice. According to his teachers and his mother, the young man has one big problem of forgetting, and therefore he cannot be promoted because he has consistently been the last one in the class for all those 15 years. But how long do his teachers need to realize that the young man can never improve? This school is in the People's Republic of Rwanda, and I have already written to the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Justice in that country, requesting them to charge the teachers for crimes against humanity. But this story reminded me of what goes on in our country, Kenya. According to the information that I gathered, is that repetition was banned in the year 2013. But I don't know why I have a feeling that it had been banned earlier. But nevertheless, students are still made to repeat classes in spite of the ban. In my former station, the cutoff used to be a C-, and therefore anyone with a D+ and below was required to repeat. Without unnecessarily insisting it, the end of the year period used to be the most stressful period, especially to the Form 3 students who are supposed to be promoted to the final Form 4 year. And because of that, about a third of the students would repeat, another third would transfer to other schools, and another third would be promoted. This group that was promoted was a group that had gotten a D+ and below, but they were promoted nevertheless because they had repeated earlier, either in Form 1, Form 2, or Form 3. And now, some credit goes to our school because there was a policy that you could not repeat twice, unlike in the People's Republic of Rwanda, where somebody has repeated for 15 years. Several researches have been carried out on this issue of repetition, or rather grade retention as it is called in some countries. And although the results show conflicting outcomes, with some favoring the repetition, most of the researches show that repetition has got a greater negative effect than the positive effect. But the one that I would like to concentrate on is the one done in the year 2001 by somebody called Jimerson. He summarized the historical research and added a carefully culled set of studies conducted between 1990 and 1999, all of which included comparison groups of promoted students. Most of the comparisons showed no significant differences between promoted and retained students on measures of achievement or personal and social adjustment. In those studies that did show a difference, the results favored the promoted students, especially on measures of achievement. I am inclined towards this kind of result that tend to favor promotion rather than repetition. But forget about all these kind of researches. I have been on the ground and I want to report directly from the ground. And I can tell you, in my former station, all the students who ever repeated a class for getting a D+ and below, all of them got a D+ and below eventually in their Form 4 KCSE exams. But perhaps I may have forgotten one or two students who maybe got a C- and above, and that is why I called the curriculum master in my former station and he confirmed the information that I'm giving you here. But nevertheless, let us work with 99.9% of the students repeating for getting a D+ and below, and yet finally getting a D+ and below in their final Form 4 exam. I still remember one of the students who was supposed to repeat for getting a D in the Form 3 exam, and he went and reported us to the County Director of Education's office, and the County Director of Education ordered us to promote the student. Then eventually this student got a D, and I tend to ask myself, which grade would he have gotten if he repeated? And I can tell you without any shadow of doubt that this student would eventually have gotten a D whether or not he repeated. But maybe, just maybe, if we had made him to repeat, he would even have gotten a D-. in his final Form 4 exam. Most studies have found that retention is associated with lower academic self-concept, lower levels of self-esteem, lower quality peer relationships, because this tends to break the relationships that the students had with those who have already been promoted, and also creates more negative attitudes towards school. And these are some of the reasons why the students who repeat do not improve in any way. And I have seen some of these effects firsthand. I still remember that when I was in high school, there was a friend of mine who we used to stay in the same cubicle in the dorm. His name was Michael. And this guy was forced to repeat in Form 3. I'm saying forced to repeat because he was a good student and he had already passed to go to Form 4. But there was some kind of collaboration between the mother and the school where the mother was convinced that the student needed to repeat. But it was just because the school needed the boy or needed this guy to play for them in the basketball school team. And so the guy repeated. And I still remember that day when he repeated. And he came to the dorm and told me, nilikuwa nasikia nikuje nichukue box yangu niende na nisiwahi rudi hapa tena. And he took about 1 or 2 terms before he could eventually accept his fate. And I saw a similar message on the internet claiming that one of the most painful things that a student underwent while in school is being forced to repeat, even when he had qualified to go to the next class. And it is this kind of frustration that increases the likelihood of somebody dropping out of school. And research actually shows that retention can increase the likelihood that a student will drop out of school. Students who drop out are 5 times more likely to have been retained than those who graduate. The only time, and allow me to repeat that once again for the second time, that the only time that a student can improve after repeating is if he or she completes one level, perhaps primary school or secondary school, and comes back to do the same exam as a Standard 9 or a Form 5 student. That is the only time. Any other time, it's not going to work. And that is why, in conclusion, I'm urging my colleague teachers, especially the administrators, the curriculum office, the deputy's office, the principal's office, the head teachers, to kindly allow the students to proceed with their studies without any repetition. This pre-medieval practice that does not actually improve the students' performance in any way should come to an end. And actually, most of these administrators know this, but they continue this kind of practice so that they can frustrate the weak students, so that these weak students can ship out of their schools, and then the bright students are left behind, so as to improve the main score of the school, so that to retain the good name of the school as a high-performing school. Another reason for this, like I said in this video, this kind of practice continues in utter disobedience of science. And like I said in that video, you cannot disobey science. And the results are there for us to see that there is no single improvement in these students that normally repeat. Thank you so much. I'm out.